Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to kick it off. If we touch back on the different areas that we discussed, obviously we've spent a decent amount of time talking about cell therapy. And if we tie that back, I'm very hopeful. Going back to the idea of having true immune orchestration against a tumor, I think it would be perhaps overly optimistic to say that all cancer is going to be cured. I don't know that I'd go that far. I think there's still a lot of basic biology that needs to be uncovered before we can really say something like that. But I'm very hopeful that standard of care in all cancers will look like the best case scenarios for people with blood cancers today, and how CAR T delivers efficacy for them, which is to say, I think 5-year survival rates of 90% or higher for basically every cancer type. I hope and I believe that will be the reality then.
2050 for Francisco. I think something I think about a lot is blurring the lines between pharmaceuticals and healthcare services and delivery. There's kind of a common notion right now around cell therapies, the phrase, the process is the product. At some point, composition of matter is the wrong way to think about IP in the biopharmaceutical space. We have more of these like living therapies, and manufacturing them ends up becoming the actual IP towards bringing that to bear. If you take it even a step further, I think, into your point, Chaz, about like neuroscience, for example, this sort of artificial separation of the brain and the mind, like that there are apps today like digital therapeutics that are CBT for addiction treatment. There's consumer-based apps like Calm for like, relaxation, but obviously, is a way to help with things like anxiety and depression. And we also have drugs for those things. And it's weird that we separate them. It makes sense in a past life. Like if you get an infectious disease, you take an antibiotic, you don't talk to the, pathogen. But as these diseases get more complex and the treatments get more complex, we have to start thinking more about how do you deliver these more broadly, but also how do you mix this and what's a form of reimbursement? How do you pay for this? Both because they're very expensive, but also because how does, like right now, does a PBM still, brokers a cell therapy, but it seems really odd. Does a PBM broker a bone marrow transplant? I don't think so, or an organ transplant. And so when we start to blur all these lines, the structures we've set up don't make any more sense. And it would be a shame to try to retrofit, existing incumbents into kind of a new structure of healthcare delivery, as opposed to figuring out novel ways to both deliver care, pay for it, like follow up on it, in these kind of multimodal ways. So I know it's like a series of random sort of thoughts there, but I don't know how the therapies that David, has rightly brought up as these complex ones fit into the standard molds of business as usual.